A huge thank you to Sega for sponsoring this video. It's September of 1992 and this exciting new theme is blasting from your cousin's 13-inch CRTV. You're sleeping over that weekend because your parents are out of town and he's lucky enough to have a Super Nintendo, something you only get to touch when you visit his house. And the two of you are hyped to try the brand new Mario racing game everyone's talking about, Super Mario Kart, a wild new experience with nearly 3D tracks and characters throwing items at each other mid-race. You've both selected your characters and he starts up the Mushroom Cup Grand Prix. And as the race proceeds, he's standing over you, gloating, trash talking.
You suck, you suck, you suck.
But you're locked in. 4 races later, and you've wiped the floor with him, and he's gone dead silent. This isn't a game anymore. And in the final race, it isn't even close. He finishes in 3rd, while you take 1st. Koopa Troopa celebrates at the bottom of the screen, and for a moment, you feel invincible. You turn to share your moments, but before you can even say a word, a Super Nintendo controller sails into the side of your head. Your cousin is livid. You can't make out what he's yelling because you're seeing red, and you retaliate. Limbs are flying as you both tumble and burn your skin, dragging each other across the carpet. Your aunt screams from the next room telling you two to stop, but it's too late. You have to snuff him out. This is from Mario. Then 2 authoritative hands pull you away from each other, and you don't know who it is, but you start to calm down as you look at your cousin in the eyes, who's all red-faced, teary-eyed, and breathless from the struggle. But you remember something. You won. Mario Kart awoke something within you, and you need that feeling again.
Wanna play again?
Mario Kart has become a full-blown phenomenon. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe alone has outsold the latest mainline Mario game by over 30 million copies. There's just something irresistible about watching the Mario cast go out for this highly competitive Sunday drive in go-karts. And with Mario Kart World on the horizon, it's clear this trend isn't slowing down. But how did this all begin? Why did Mario's creator, Shigeru Miyamoto, decide to put Nintendo's mascot behind the wheel in the first place? In this origin oracle, we're racing through the history of Mario Kart, from its humble beginnings to what comes next. So grab a snack, sit back, and let's hit the racetrack.
Hey kid, is that the new Nintendo Switch 2 in your hand? Fantastic! Sonic and Shadow are back in Sonic X Shadow Generations for the Nintendo Switch 2! The timeline needs your help. Join Shadow the Hedgehog alongside classic and modern Sonic in an all-new collection featuring 2 unique experiences, a remastered greatest hits tour of Sonic levels, and Shadow's brand new standalone campaign, this time enhanced and optimized for the Nintendo Switch 2. Sonic X Shadow Generations now has enhanced resolutions and juicier graphics on the go. Black Doom has never looked this crispy. Enhanced crisp. Master Shadow's new Doom powers as he faces his greatest enemies throughout time, and uncover deeper truths about his dark past. Or drop dash your way with Sonic to victory against the menacing Time Eater and save his friends. Hey, are you still there? Buy your copy of Sonic X Shadow Generations today using the link below. Available on consoles, PC, and now including the Nintendo Switch 2. Well kid, I'm out of time. Only you can do this. Get your copy for the Switch 2 or I'll be stuck in this TV in the 90s forever!
Super Mario Kart is where this legend begins, released in Japan for the Super Famicom in August 1992, and for the Super Nintendo in North America in September 1992. A game that took competitive racing to the next level by introducing Mario characters as the stars, and adding the crucial battle mechanic of being able to throw items and use speed boosting power-ups to gain an advantage. So not only did you have to race good, you had to be an ass as well. Going back to this title, it's actually wild to see how much content the game had. 8 playable drivers, 4 cups, 20 different courses. This series started with a very powerful foundation. The game has a single-player mode and 2-player multiplayer, with most of it centered around Grand Prix, a series of 5 races, and the goal is simple: just win. The higher you place in each race, the more points you get toward the total Grand Prix. Get the most points and you're the new king of the house, and you get to tell all those little kids that they'll never win at life. It's an important rite of passage. The original roster includes Mario and Luigi, Princess Peach and Yoshi, Bowser and Donkey Kong Jr., rest in peace, sweet child, and Koopa Troopa and Toad. Each of these pairs have their own unique stats, giving them specific advantages and disadvantages to get some variety on the track. For example, the Mario brothers are all-arounders, having a higher than average top speed, but remain average in everything else, while Peach and Yoshi, for instance, have the best acceleration in the game, but awful handling in exchange. These stats will become a series staple, with future titles eventually giving every character a different stat, along with the type of kart they select, but I'm getting a little ahead of myself. And for those familiar with my channel, yes, I did check for long lost lore here, but the manual has failed me. We do get a short introduction from Lakitu, who says he runs this track, so maybe this is the long lost lore? Can we say that Lakitu is the one who organized the Mario Kart competition in the first place? Anyway, he goes on to introduce the player to a go-kart, a one-seater metal pipe frame go-kart with two engine sizes, 50cc and 100cc. And the karts are pretty much the same, but characters make all the difference, which 3-year-old me didn't know, but I'm pretty sure I kept driving into the water over and over again anyway. Collect coins on the track and you get a small speed boost to round out your amazing driving skills. And of course, no Mario Kart would be complete without its chaos engine, the items. The original game introduced classics like the banana peel, green and red shells, and the clutch star power, all of which became tools for sweet, calculated revenge. They defined the dynamic of the race and balanced out gameplay, and gave that X factor for players who may not be as good as racing, but if they got a good throwing arm, they could still push through. There's also this rival system within the game where once you select a character, there are a set of other drivers that will be programmed to race at specific speeds. So for example, if you're playing as Koopa Troopa, Luigi and Yoshi will be the faster characters, and likely will be at the front of the lineup most of the time. The purpose of this is to keep the point standings in the Grand Prix competitive, because if it were totally random, the CPU's points would likely be too skewed and wouldn't challenge the player too much. So if you ever played these games and wondered why the same character is on your ass for the entire Grand Prix, it's specifically to keep you on your toes. Super Mario Kart's visuals hold up pretty well, but the game definitely is showing its age. Coins, for example, are these flat yellow pellets on the ground and don't stand up on the track just yet. Same with the item boxes, which are flat squares on the track that you'll have to run over. The courses themselves are based on locations from Super Mario World, like Donut Plains, Ghost Valley, and Bowser's Castle, and while I did say there were 20 courses in total, many of them are variations of each other. The only unique course is the famous Rainbow Road, which we've seen remade time and time again in future Mario Kart games, but this one is especially diabolical. I mean, look at these 90-degree turns. But as I look at this game, I'm getting flashbacks to... Wait a second. Super Mario Kart was inspired by the Super Nintendo launch title F-Zero, a high-speed, futuristic racing title that flexed the power and visuals of the Super Nintendo back in 1990. I covered this series in extraordinary detail in this video, so feel free to check that out if you're interested, but just know F-Zero as a title would be highly influential for future racing titles. Super Mario Kart was no exception. Creator of Mario and Nintendo legend Shigeru Miyamoto produced F-Zero and would go on to apply what they learned from that title to create Super Mario Kart, and the directors for the game would be Tadashi Sugiyama, director of Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link, and Hideki Kono, known for his role in level design for Super Mario Bros. 2 and 3. Returning from F-Zero was Mode 7 texture mapping, a visual style that resembles 3D, where the map is rotated and scaled around the player to give the illusion that the player is fully controlling the direction of the kart, when in fact, they're more so controlling the map. So with that in mind, it's pretty crazy to think that they managed to get this to work with 2 players at the same time. At first, the game wasn't a Mario title. The focus was on taking the single-player gameplay from F-Zero and turning it into an experience where they could display the game screen for 2 players at the same time. The first prototype of the game featured a guy in overalls sitting in the cart, but it wasn't even decided that it would be Mario himself until about 3 or 4 months after they started development, according to Kono. Miyamoto has said, quote, "At first, no racing was involved. It was just 2 karts moving around freely. Then we noticed that it looked neat if you stopped one car and looked at the other car flying by. We decided to see what it would look like with Mario in one of the karts, and everyone thought that looked even better. Who knows, maybe the designer who drew the overalls on the earlier guy intended that it be changed to Mario all along." But during development, the focus wasn't just on racing. Another crucial game mode would be introduced, called Battle Mode, a mode where the drivers are in a closed arena where they have to protect balloons on their kart while tossing items to pop the other player's balloons. Kono has said, quote, "We decided from the start that there would be races, but we thought it would be good if the game served as a communication tool in which one-on-one battles were possible via some other kind of gameplay rather than simply competing for rank. And someone had the idea of popping each other's balloons." So once Super Mario Kart hit the market, it was accepted with glowing praise and was a commercial success, going on to sell 8.76 million copies worldwide, and would become the 4th best-selling game for the Super Nintendo. This proved to Nintendo that this side experiment was the start of its own genre, and while many have tried to replicate this success, I love you, Sonic, Mario Kart stands on its own pedestal, and this was its humble beginnings. I really have to admire the attention to detail that Super Mario Kart has though. When a racer gets too close to you, you actually see the character make eye contact, which is very popular now with all the meme mugging that's gone on in recent games, but this has been a thing since the inception of Mario Kart. Also, while digging into this, I found regional differences between animations, like Peach guzzling down her victory champagne, and I wish this could be like a low-key character trait for her moving on, but whatever. But this was of course cut from the US version. So with all this success, no doubt Nintendo was cooking up a follow-up. So leading up to a 1995 release date, they would develop one of the greatest Mario Kart titles of all time, VB Mario Kart for the Virtual Boy.
What?
Okay, just kidding, that got cancelled. So it was time to go full 3D instead, with the legendary Mario Kart 64. Mario Kart 64 solidified the series as we know it today, with fully 3D environments and characters inspired by Super Mario 64. Nintendo took everything that worked in the original and brought it into a new dimension. The game dropped in December 1996 in Japan, and February in 1997 in North America. And this time we got new mechanics, voice acting, and 16 bigger, more distinct courses. No more recycled layouts. The full roster mostly returned, except Koopa Troopa, who got the axe, and Donkey Kong Jr., who was quietly taken out back and shot, unless otherwise stated by Nintendo. In their place, we got Wario, and the newer Donkey Kong from Donkey Kong Country. Actually, Koopa Troopa was originally going to be replaced by Kamek. Early prototypes of the game shows that he was on the character select screen, but he would get swapped out for DK at the last minute. I'm sorry, Kamek. But just like before, characters had different stats, but this time they were divided into weight classes. Bowser, Donkey Kong, and Wario were heavyweights, built for raw power and handling. Peach, Yoshi, and Toad were lightweights with faster acceleration and top speeds. And of course, the Mario Brothers sat right in the middle. Solid, balanced, and boring in the best way. Drifting also got a major upgrade. While Super Mario Kart had a basic hop and turn drift for those sharp 90-degree corners, Mario Kart 64 introduced the Mini Turbo Boost. If you wiggled the stick left and right during a drift, you'd build up a speed boost to give you that edge. It's now a series staple, but this is where it started. Also added to the game are 3D item boxes on the map, making them much more visible and somehow more challenging to grab. But let's say that you pick up a green or a red shell. You can now hold down a button to hold it behind you and play defensively for anyone back there that's trying to take you out. In addition to that feature, the bananas and green shells could also be thrown backwards at enemies. Mario Kart 64 would also debut classic items like the triple shells, triple mushrooms, the banana bunch, the super mushrooms, and last but not least, the spiny shell, also known as the dreaded blue shell. Nowadays, there are ways around this thing, but I wonder, like back then, how many pools of tears could be filled because of this item alone. Mario Kart 64 was developed alongside Super Mario 64 and The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. The game was originally titled Super Mario Kart R, with the R standing for rendered. Hideki Kono would return to direct, and while they weren't looking to overhaul the formula, the goal was pretty clear: bring Mario Kart into a new dimension while keeping it smooth and fun. But with limiting processing power in the N64, they had to get a little creative. The racers you see on screen aren't actually 3D models. They're 2D sprites, pre-rendered and rotated at different angles to give the illusion of depth. Kono explained it like this: to tell the truth, putting the characters in 3D isn't, strictly speaking, impossible, but it slows down the game, and 8 characters won't be able to race all at once. So we first drew images from various angles to be able to show the karts from various angles. Then we put them on boards so they could be animated. And because of this trick, they were able to pull off one of the biggest additions to this game: 4-player split screen. Mario Kart was now the party game, ready to ruin friendships across dorms and living rooms everywhere. So of course, on release, the game was more successful than its predecessor, selling 9.8 million copies worldwide, making it the second best-selling game on the N64. But before I move on, let's quickly talk about a couple of the tracks, because this game is difficult. The Mushroom Cup innocently pulls you in with simpler courses like Luigi Raceway and Koopa Troopa Beach, until it breaks you down in Toad's Turnpike. You would think driving on a straightaway would be easy, but between dodging items, trying to grab items for yourself in this tiny pocket over here, and then trying to avoid getting hit by a truck, it easily takes that sense of safety away. But the most frustrating track for me was Royal Raceway, bar none. I don't know how I'm gonna edit this part in, but I found every possible way to careen into the surrounding water or crash into mountains. It got so bad, I just detoured to Peach's castle for a minute because I needed to mentally reset. And as a warning, the rubber banding and rival system in Mario Kart 64 is out of control. The CPUs are glued to you. Any mistake and all the racers are instantly flying past you, and I see many agree this is one of the most unbalanced Mario Karts out there. But damn it, it's still fun. Okay, one last cool detail. The manual actually gives lore for some of the courses. For example, Wario Stadium's description reads, "That rascal Wario was in charge of the design and construction of this course. A fan of motocross races, he brought in major amounts of sand to fill this huge stadium in an attempt to build a course more suitable to bikes than karts. Ironically, we wouldn't see bikes in Mario Kart until 4 games later. But after the success of Mario Kart 64, the series would take a short break. It wouldn't be until 5 years later that Mario returned to the raceway, this time on Nintendo's next powerful handheld console. Mario Kart Super Circuit released for the Game Boy Advance in summer 2001. While Miyamoto produced this one, he went this time to Intelligent Systems to develop the title. The studio most famously known for the Fire Emblem series, but fun fact, they were involved with Nintendo for a very long time, developing classics like Mario Bros., Wrecking Crew, Metroid, and Famicom Wars. Tangent aside, Super Circuit feels like the middle child of this series because you don't really hear much about it in the grand scheme of things. And it's understandable why. So many other Mario Kart games have been released, and this is just outside that classic Mario Kart time period. But I remember this game being revolutionary at the time, because I recall seeing it for the first time as a kid and just being in awe because it was a full-blown Mario Kart on a handheld screen. This game sold nearly 6 million copies and the critics ate it up. It was the best-selling non-Pokemon game on the Game Boy Advance. And I think it's an important title just because it showed what the Game Boy Advance was capable of very early on in its life cycle. But the game doesn't exactly reinvent the wheel. Returning to the game are the 8 characters from the Mario 64 roster, all sticking to their original weight classes, but I thought it was interesting that this was the first game to spell it out to you in-game. But listen, this game packed in a ridiculous 40 tracks. It had 20 brand new courses, and we don't sleep on Cheeseland around here, but for the real ones who grinded it out, you could unlock all 20 tracks from the original Super Mario Kart. Super Circuit was the first game in the series to bring back retro tracks, a tradition that's stuck with every game since. So you basically got 2 Mario games on one cartridge. Visually, they went back to the Mode 7 style of the SNES original, but the Game Boy Advance has these charming, colorful models, though it gets a bit rough looking at this on an HD screen these days. And if you're one of the lucky households that had a link cable, I'm still very salty that I didn't, and another friend with a Game Boy Advance, and they also had to have Super Circuit as well, this game had 4-player multiplayer capabilities. I'm curious if anyone in the comments had all of these unicorns combined. Maybe I just needed more gamer friends. But here's something that I didn't know. Super Circuit had a ranking system under the hood that judged how clean you raced. Let's say you placed first in every race. You get your trophy, hooray. But how well did you drive while getting that trophy? Your final grade might tell a different story. The game silently tracked dozens of stats like how long you held the gas, how often you spun out, whether you were hogging items without using them, even if you collected coins or pulled off a rocket start. The game will even discriminate based on characters, by the way. In the code, it has playing as Yoshi giving you the lowest score bonus out of any character. Meanwhile, Bowser scores higher just for showing up. Did Koopas make this game? But all that said, Super Circuit didn't redefine the series, but it was a huge technical achievement. It proved Mario Kart could work on handhelds, and that would become incredibly important just a few years later. But first, Nintendo would release the cult classic of the franchise, Mario Kart Double Dash. Double Dash launched worldwide in November 2003 for the Nintendo GameCube, and was the title that raised the stakes by introducing 2 characters per kart, and then they never did it again. You can now pair up 2 characters, one driving and one handling items, but here's the twist. You could swap positions mid-race, unlocking a whole new layer of strategy. Each character could hold their own item, which encouraged more strategic swaps. As far as game modes, Double Dash brings back the classic 4, Grand Prix, Time Trial, Versus, and Battle, all standard by now, but they had some important upgrades. The Grand Prix mode has 4 cups with 4 tracks each, and you have your normal difficulties of 50cc, 100cc, and 150cc, but Double Dash introduced a new difficulty this time, Mirror. 150cc engine class difficulty, but with mirrored tracks. And it would also change how retries work. In Mario Kart 64, if you failed a race in a Grand Prix, you'd have the opportunity to retry individual tracks. Double Dash changes the rules, with you having to see the Grand Prix through to the end, regardless of your standing, a rule that has stuck ever since. But to support this new driver system, they needed more drivers, and the roster expanded dramatically. 10 new characters joined on top of the original roster, with Daisy visiting from Sarasaland, Baby Mario and Luigi with their Goo Goo Buggy, Birdo, Paratroopa, Bowser Jr., who was introduced to the world 1 year prior in Super Mario Sunshine, Diddy Kong, who may have replaced Donkey Kong Jr., who's seen in an early build of the game, Waluigi, Toadette, Petey Piranha, and King Boo. Not to mention, Koopa finally makes his triumphant return after being left out for 2 games. So with the roster receiving a huge facelift and with GameCube having higher processing capabilities, more racers could be on the track at one time. Each pair of characters now have their own special item that can be obtained when you grab item boxes during the race, like fireballs for Mario and Luigi that can be used to trip up the competition, or DK and Diddy's giant banana, a much larger obstacle to avoid on the track. Don't take that out of context. Some of these special items like the Baby Mario Brothers Chain Chomp would make it into later games as items that are available for everyone. I love the little character descriptions in the manual, by the way. It's like someone was fanboying out for Daisy. This is Princess Daisy's first foray onto the speedways. She's so cute. She's become something of an idol. But on top of having new characters, for the first time, players would be able to select different karts which had different stats to give some additional variety. So not only did your choice in characters matter, the karts were packing their own advantages as well. Or if you just weren't feeling the aesthetic, you had options. Just like the characters, there are light karts, medium karts, and heavy karts, but characters are unable to select karts that are below their weight class. So unfortunately, you won't be able to fit Bowser into the Goo Goo Buggy. Maybe there's a mod for this somewhere. But one of Double Dash's biggest flexes was its track design. There are 14 courses, some inspired from previous Mario Kart games like Luigi's Circuit and Bowser's Castle, but then you have courses like Baby Park, a tiny 7-lap arena of pure chaos and one of the most memorable tracks in this game. Apparently, this course was inspired by the 2002 Salt Lake City Winter Olympics after the director watched the speed skating event, and now this course makes a lot more sense to me. It's an extremely easy track to navigate, but its tight architecture and really short length makes it very easy for racers to hit each other with items, no matter where they are on the track. And there are also courses with gimmicks like DK Mountain, where you're launched out of a cannon into an active volcano, and Wario Coliseum, a winding 2-lap marathon that's the longest course in the game. But the best part about Double Dash is that you could play cooperatively with another player. This was a time where Mario Kart ended friendships, but also mended them. So you and another player were able to choose your racer and swap between each other mid-race to either handle the driving or the item throwing. And the player in the back could even attack their rivals and steal items by performing a slide attack, which makes this the most violent title in the series. With this game supporting 4-player multiplayer, 2 teams could join the race in co-op mode, which truly made this game a standout Mario Kart title, since this hasn't really been explored again. But if you're one of the lucky people to get your hands on the Nintendo GameCube broadband adapter, I promise they're not paying me, it was possible to have a LAN Mario Kart party with up to 8 other GameCube systems, supporting up to 16 players at a time. So forget my earlier Game Boy Advance related question. If anyone maxed out the capacity of players on LAN mode, let me know in the comments. Nintendo's in-house studio, Nintendo EAD, were responsible for the game, with a new set of directors joining the development team. Primarily Kiyoshi Mizuki, getting in the director's chair for the first time after being assistant director for Luigi's Mansion. The main goal for this title was to attract new players who had no experience with the series, but at the same time, the team had a hard time figuring out which gameplay features would please hardcore Mario Kart fans. Let's take the banana item for example. In previous titles, if you ran into a banana, pressing a button at the right time would allow you to recover from spinning out and have you on your way. Masters of this technique were rewarded for their skills by being able to quickly recover from one mistake of hitting a banana. But they removed this feature in Double Dash because the team believed this widened the gap between advanced and beginner players. Same reason the ability to hold an item or shell behind you was removed from this title. Which brings up an argument I see often among Mario Kart fans, that the core challenge of Mario Kart has slowly dissipated with each title, as Nintendo makes it more palatable for mainstream audiences. But we'll see more examples of this later. Mizuki has said, quote, "It was a very difficult task. It was never very easy for us to come up with a gameplay feature that would cater to the old fans of the existing Mario Kart series, as well as adding some new features so that fans of classic Mario Kart titles could enjoy it too. Even harder than that was trying to attract those people that have never played with the series in the past. So I wanted to make it as simple as possible where the gameplay nature is concerned. That was one of the most difficult tasks that I was assigned." So after many heated discussions on having 2 racers to a kart, the team moved forward with the idea, with them liking the enjoyable look of a tandem mode and seeing that the playability of the game became more of a party experience. Battle mode also got a facelift, moving beyond just the balloon popping experience and adding 2 additional games. Shine Thief has players race to grab a shine that's dropped on the course with the objective to hold on to it until the timer reaches 0, assuming you can survive the item storm. Bomb Blast is a little more aggressive, with players tossing bombs at each other to rack up enough points to win. Not to mention you could battle it out on top of a Nintendo GameCube, how meta. So like all the other Mario Kart games, Double Dash became one of the system's best sellers, moving 6.9 million copies worldwide, making it the second best selling GameCube game of all time, behind Super Smash Bros. Melee, and I'm starting to see a trend here. So naturally, Mario's racing career would continue back to the portable scene with Nintendo's next console, the Nintendo DS.
Hot Mario, silver play, oh no, come on, mamma mia, per favore.
I always love this box art for some reason. It's like Mario's telling you to go f yourself. Simply known as Mario Kart DS, this title would be released in November 2005 for the Nintendo DS. Strangely enough, this is the first Mario Kart title that would come out in North America first, with the Japanese release coming less than a month later. Nothing crazy, but interesting nonetheless. Another thing I noticed is that this game seems to be where the Mario Kart branding made a huge shift. It's more minimalistic and sanitized. The blank white void on the box, the simple font. It's like it's not just a wacky race between friends anymore. Nintendo would stick to this aesthetic after this game, and I don't really have strong opinions on this, but it's just an observation. But there is one huge feature this game pioneered: wireless multiplayer. Gone are the days of link cables. This time all you needed was the game and a DS. And another friend with a DS. But if you grew up during this time, this was huge. Wi-Fi being implemented into consoles was such a game changer and shifted multiplayer experiences across the board. So if you wanted to hop into a quick race with a friend, they didn't need a copy of the game. Using the DS download play function, up to 8 players could race with one another wirelessly, though you wouldn't have access to all the courses and the players without the game could only play as Shy Guy. But ironically, this was an exclusive character just for download play. Either way, it was a brilliant way to promote the game, and it worked. And for the first time ever, players could now race folks worldwide, with a fully online feature where you could race with up to 4 other players from around the world. Hideki Kono would return to produce the title, and in regards to online, said that many people who use online play in games like Halo were hardcore gamers. And with Mario Kart DS, he aimed to have everyone go online now that they had the technology to make that happen. As for the core game, Mario Kart DS returned to traditional style Mario Kart, now a fully 3D portable experience. Your traditional game modes return like Grand Prix, Time Trial, Versus, Battle, and Mission? Okay, more on that later. Characters again are locked into weight classes, light, medium, and heavy, with 36 karts in total, 3 for each character, many of them being unlockable after winning gold trophies in the Grand Prix. The character roster kept things tight. The Mario Kart 64 cast returned, joined by 4 unlockables: Daisy, Drybones, Waluigi, and Rob, Nintendo's robotic toy accessory from the 80s.
Robo-fuck is my piece of shit!
I really feel like someone at Nintendo must have been a huge Rob fan at this time, because he'd show up a couple years later, introduced as a character in Super Smash Bros. Brawl. Anyway, despite Mario Kart DS's smaller roster this time around, it did feature 32 courses across 8 different cups. 16 of them would be brand new tracks for the series. Grand Prix mode even brings back the rating system from Super Circuit to continue judging you from the shadows. Item-wise, 2 newcomers joined the lineup: the blooper, which obscures opponents' screens with ink, annoying but now a staple, and Bullet Bill, which transforms the player into a giant unstoppable missile for a few seconds, most likely an item a player would get if they're getting left in the dust. A great comeback mechanic though, even if the controls go out the window while you're flying. The driving mechanic themselves continue to be polished, with drifting playing a much more important role and becoming easier to pull off. They even added a drift stat for each kart, which shows how tight the kart would turn during the drift. So as a result, it became popular to drift on straightaways. So if you mastered the drift boost, you could chain them back and forth across these straightaways, getting a serious speed advantage. This technique would be called snaking, a crucial skill to learn if you plan to play this game competitively. Another technique was slipstreaming. Hang behind a racer in front of you long enough and it will grant you a speed boost to help pass that player. To be fair, this was introduced in Mario Kart 64, but it made its return with more prominence in Mario Kart DS and has been a part of the series ever since. Oh, and you can now hold items behind your cart again to play defensively, and I'm so glad Nintendo brought this back. I mentioned mission mode earlier. This gave a little bit more options for single players within the game. It's the only time in the series you can take on structured single player challenges like collecting coins, smashing item boxes, or racing bosses like IROC from Mario 64. And in hindsight, it's kind of crazy that they put this in. So we haven't seen a follow-up on this mode until now. Mario Kart World's free roam mode will have missions that the player can complete while they're exploring, so it's good to see Nintendo's following up on this. The game would also take advantage of the touchscreen on the DS, giving players the ability to customize emblems for their vehicles for that extra razzle-dazzle. You could craft these pixel by pixel, which I'm sure led to some interesting designs.
I don't really want to spend too much time on this. Perfect.
I'm sure many of you have played Mario Kart DS, but here's something you may have not known. There is a cancelled spin-off with the working title Mario Motors. a name we see of Mario's team or racing franchise within the series from time to time, but this wouldn't be known until 2018 at the Reboot Develop Conference. It was revealed that this game was in the works for the Nintendo DS by Yuta Saito, Japanese game designer most famously known for that very strange human fish pet simulator for the Dreamcast, Seaman.
Is your mom still working or not?
Saito was good friends with Miyamoto and former Nintendo CEO Satoru Iwata, and they would meet up often to talk about game ideas over tea. And Saito pitched to them an idea of being able to sculpt metal using the touchscreen and DS stylus, with Iwata and Miyamoto agreeing to try this out, which would flesh out into a Mario Kart spin-off where you could create car engines and blow into the DS microphone to power the car. It's still unknown why this game was cancelled, but Saito has said, quote, "I cannot tell you why now, but please guess. That's a very confidential thing. Many things happen." That's probably the vaguest quote I've ever read in my life. But I'll be honest, it was probably an idea that sounded better on paper. Now, the next game in the series is one of the most important, but I want to take a quick pit stop. If you've gone to the arcade in recent times, I'm sure you've stumbled into some Mario Kart games there, and it's probably hard to tell the difference at a glance, but they're worth mentioning. These are the Mario Kart Arcade GP series of arcade titles, with the first game launched back in 2005. This was a special collaboration between Nintendo and Namco after they and Sega co-developed a new arcade board known as Triforce. This gave them the ability to easily develop games for the arcade using GameCube architecture. One of those titles was Mario Kart Arcade GP, a modified version of Double Dash with a more traditional style of gameplay. It contains the original 8 characters from the Mario Kart 64 roster, alongside Namco's Pac-Man, Mrs. Pac-Man, and Blinky. So of course you had the full adjustable seat, wheel, and pedals to get that immersive Mario Kart experience, but since it's an arcade version, it had a much more rushed Grand Prix mode with 6 cups containing 2 courses. Shout out to the Pac-Man Cup, by the way. It'd be nice to see some of these exclusive tracks in a console title. Not to mention, this game has a staggering 93 items available, but more doesn't always mean better. I don't think we need to throw pies in actual Mario Kart. They'd follow up this title with Mario Kart Arcade GP 2 in 2007, bringing back all courses from the original and adding 4 new courses to their arsenal. They'd also bring in Waluigi, so that counts for something. And this guy, Mamichi. Real ones would recognize him. My OG Tamagotchi fans stand up. There'd be 2 other games in this arcade series, but we'll get to them later in the video. So at this stage, Mario Kart has already cemented itself as a mainstream franchise. A growing roster, online multiplayer, arcade versions of the game, and a growing fan base overall. But Nintendo would take the ideology from Double Dash and Mario Kart DS of wanting a much more casual player base, and applied it at a grander scale for their next console, which would be the one to break the mold. The Nintendo Wii was the casual gaming device of the 2000s. It was a perfect and safe gateway for families to connect. It had this big trusted brand behind it, and it put its focus on fun rather than graphical fidelity. It was small and easy to carry around if you ignored all the wires needed to set it up. And then there was motion controls, an unorthodox and beginner-friendly way of playing a video game. This system would go on to sell 101 million copies. That's a lot of homes. And I'd argue Wii Sports played a huge role in that, but the other reason was Mario Kart Wii.
Yahoo! Come on! Oh yeah! Hey!
Released in April of 2008 for the Nintendo Wii, Mario Kart Wii was the game changer for the series. Screw all of those hardcore advanced techniques I mentioned earlier. I can just hold this Wii remote sideways and move it like a wheel? Hell yeah. I'm just kidding, I hated motion controls. But thankfully, they were optional, and there were several different control schemes players could use, making it the most accessible Mario Kart at that time. Want to shove the Wii remote into your Wii wheel accessory and drive like a madman? You could do that. Are you into more traditional gameplay? Use the Wii remote with the nunchuck attachment. Are you a hardcore gamer that came to show out on these newbies? Well, you have the classic controller or GameCube controller to stomp them out for a few Grand Prix. Mario Kart Wii takes many of its mechanics from Mario Kart DS, except with more polish, and underneath it all, it was an amazing Mario Kart title. One of the biggest changes was the addition of bikes. To this day, this is my favorite vehicle to play with. You could perform wheelies to get a speed boost, and overall the bike excels in acceleration and handling, but as a consequence, they're much lighter weight and easier to smack around. Funny enough, the idea for bikes was presented by Hideki Kono during the development of Double Dash, but the idea was shot down because at the time, they couldn't get behind the idea of Mario riding a motorcycle. So building on this, Mario Kart Wii flexes a roster of 24 playable characters, the biggest roster at the time, introducing Baby Peach and Daisy, the newly introduced Rosalina from Super Mario Galaxy, Funky Kong joining his Kong brethren, and Dry Bowser, a reference to that time Mario killed Bowser.
He screaming and shit. Ah! Fuck! I shut the door.
And with the introduction of Miis to the Wii system at that time, you can now race with your own Mii. I pray they don't completely phase these out on the Switch too, because I just love these things.
I have not laughed this much at a game in a long time.
Once again, character weight class determined which set of karts and bikes you had access to, and each one came with its own stat breakdown: speed, acceleration, drift, off-road handling, and mini turbo. With 36 vehicles in this game in total, each character had access to 12 vehicles each. So as you can tell, the overall stats for each setup started to become more robust. Vehicles now mattered just as much as your character, like Funky Kong on the Flame Runner, which was a popular combo for players. This build had high speed, solid drift, and heavyweight bullying material, but if you were looking for an optimal drift and maneuverability, Daisy on the Mach Bike had the best drift in the game. Players had much more options and the ability to diversify their favorite characters by jumping into the most suitable kart for their playstyle. All bikes were not built the same, by the way. The standard bike or drift type bikes operate very similarly to the karts, but typically have higher acceleration and tighter handling. But there is another class of bike in this game known as hang-on types, later called sports bikes or inside drifting bikes. And if you drift with this thing, you get a much more dramatic result. It takes some getting used to, but it's extremely rewarding once you've mastered how these work. And they look much cooler. Speaking of drifting, Mario Kart Wii simplified the mini turbo. Instead of alternating left and right on the stick to build friction, you now just had to hold the drift longer to trigger the boost. It's another one of those tweaks aimed at making the game more accessible. And hot take for hardcore fans, I don't really mind it. Let's be honest, if you're pulling off mini boost in the older games, you're probably a slightly more advanced player. And Mario Kart Wii always felt like an equalizer to me. With mechanics like this being streamlined, it made playing casually with others more fun. Less about exploiting techs and more about the chaos and competition, while still being a robust racing game under the hood. But let me know what you think in the comments. 16 new courses debuted in Mario Kart Wii, many inspired from previous games again like Mario Circuit, Moo Moo Meadows, and Rainbow Road. You gotta have a new Rainbow Road each game. But once again, with more technical power at their disposal, they could make them larger scale, giving us more multi-path courses with additional verticality and shortcuts. I guess I can best describe it as more of a roller coaster feel with these new tracks, but I'd argue these amusement park style designs started in Double Dash, but Mario Kart Wii definitely doubled down on it. Also, with the new bikes that were featured, the tracks accounted for this as well, with more ramps and areas that players could now trick off of. Hit a ramp or a bump and you just flick the Wii remote to perform a trick in air that gives you a small boost when you land. As far as courses go, Coconut Mall to this day just has the aura. Driving up and down escalators while Miis are lined up all around the mall cheering you on, and then being launched outside into the parking lot to avoid cars with Mii drivers that clearly didn't get the memo that a race is going on today. It's great. But my favorite course in this game is Maple Treeway, just a sprawling forest with beautiful autumn colors somewhere in the Mushroom Kingdom. And it's a shame that they waited until now to have free roam in Mario Kart, because I would have loved to have taken a peaceful stroll around here with my friends while shooting the shit. The courses don't end there though. There's also the Retro Grands Prix. I just found out that's the plural form of Grand Prix while making this video. Just like Mario Kart DS, 16 courses from previous Mario Kart titles return in Mario Kart Wii. Shout out to Ghost Valley 2, bringing back those 90-degree angles I love so much. I mean, I can go on forever about all the cool things added to Mario Kart Wii, but I have to move on. Tournament mode! So instead of mission mode, tournament mode was added to the Mario Kart Wii, which were a variety of challenges that took place online. You needed the downloadable channel Mario Kart channel, which was part of the online capabilities for Mario Kart Wii, giving access to special game modes like the tournaments, ghost races, etc. So while you could download the Mario Kart channel separately without needing a copy of the game, you'd need the disc to access these tournaments. Tournaments themselves were similar to missions and ranged from a versus race, time trials, coin collecting, and even boss battles once again. They required an internet connection to be accessed, with 2 tournaments being held each month starting back in May of 2008. There were 47 unique tournaments in total, and were cycled in and out until the discontinuation of Nintendo Wi-Fi connection in May 2014, making these available for 6 years. Judging from the comment sections and videos archiving these tournaments, it seems like nobody knew about them. I'll be honest, I didn't either. So I take back my statement about mission mode earlier. Nintendo did try to follow it up with this, but I have to wonder how well they marketed it if some players didn't know it existed. And since tournaments were ultimately discontinued, the footage you're seeing is from a mod called Tournament Museum, which archives all 49 tournaments, created by Palapelli. Shoutouts to them and also jcool114 for archiving all of it into one YouTube video. Regardless, online gameplay was a strong motivator for players to be better and find the best build that worked for them, making this one of the most competitive Mario Kart titles of its time. For the first time in a home console Mario Kart game, you can now compete with players across the world through Nintendo Wi-Fi connection. I'll avoid critiquing Nintendo's online setup at that time. But racers and battles could now happen with up to 12 players via a Wi-Fi connection, though you couldn't quite play full Grand Prix mode online just yet. But as you can imagine, building on Mario Kart DS online capabilities was a huge priority for Nintendo. Behind the scenes, Mario Kart Wii was internally referred to as Mario Kart X, the X being short for Extreme. Partly in reference to the bikes, which were finally making their debut. The game was produced by series veteran Hideki Kono, with Yasuyuki Oyagi from Mario Kart Double Dash returning to direct. Many cut online features that were originally planned for Mario Kart DS were now put into Mario Kart Wii instead, with Kono expressing that the frustration of not being able to pull them off into the DS version turned into motivation for him to make Mario Kart Wii a much better title. Time trial rankings was one of these features, where players online could tell how they compare at global and national levels, as well as among friends. Matchmaking also received a substantial improvement, with Kono and the team attempting to address a problem they witnessed with Mario Kart DS, with players dropping out mid-race. Kono has said, quote, "There was a tendency with the DS version for one's opponents to gradually decrease in number. This time up to 12 people can play with each other, and new players can join your match after each race. In other words, if 6 players are in the first race, then even if 2 of them drops out in the next race, new players can participate for an 8 or even a 12-player match." All of this sounds pretty much like a no-brainer since online play is standard these days, but this laid the foundation for Nintendo to join us in the 21st century back in 2008.
Damn!
And I know I dismissed it a bit before, but the team did spend quite a bit of time developing the Wii Wheel, hoping to provide a lightweight and fun peripheral to complement the game's motion controls. Racing wheels for games were nothing new at the time, but many of them were serious. If you were into driving simulators or racing games, you know what I'm talking about. They tested about 30 different designs to nail something that would be approachable by the entire family, and landed on the solid white color to match the main color scheme of the Wii and its other devices. Kono even said during recording for the game, they had the voice actors say their lines while playing the game with the Wii Wheel. One of the female actors said that while she does have a driver's license, she doesn't drive very much because she isn't very good at it. She said this game was no problem though. That was when I knew the game was going to be a success. And it was exactly that. Mario Kart Wii sold 37 million units, making it the second highest selling Mario Kart title to date, and the second best selling game on the Nintendo Wii, behind Wii Sports, which was bundled with the Wii out of the gate. So Mario Kart was now mainstream. So we're far enough in this video for me to ask you to leave a like, right? You wouldn't be watching still if you didn't like it. Maybe you hate me by now, I don't know. Okay, so no offense to my Mario Kart 7 fans out there, but this is the one I always forgot about. Mario Kart 7 launched for the Nintendo 3DS in December 2011. This time in 3D. Remember the 3D craze? 3D movies, 3D TV, 3D IMAX? This was a time where I felt all the bigwig business people swore we wanted 3D in everything and just like really tried to force us to like it. 3DS visuals weren't too bad though, and it didn't require glasses, which made me wonder if I was just staring cross-eyed at my screen for hours at a time. The Nintendo 3DS was released to the world in early 2011, and for a Nintendo handheld console, it was off to a very slow start with sales. Priced at $249.99, which is about $349 now adjusted for inflation, it was one of the most expensive Nintendo handhelds ever sold, and with a weak set of launch titles, audiences were willing to wait. Mario Kart 7 was already in development as early as 2010, and with the 3DS's slow start, it was a break Mario Kart glass in case of emergency type situation. Hideki Kono was still producer of the series and had a hard time rallying enough staff together to get development on the game ramped up, reportedly due to its lower priority to other games like Nintendogs plus Cats and The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword, Zelda's swan song game for the Nintendo Wii. But there was a team that had just become available after completing Donkey Kong Country Returns, Retro Studios. Nintendo owned American studio known most famously for developing the Metroid Prime series, and I'll take this moment to plug my entire Metroid series. It's still one of my favorite games to cover. So with Retro now having some bandwidth, Nintendo EAD pitched the idea of working on Mario Kart 7 to Retro over a yakiniku dinner, and this team was honored to accept as they were huge fans of the series, and by December 2010, they started development. Mario Kart 7 included a few big features that didn't make it into Mario Kart Wii, most notably hang gliding, underwater driving, and first-person mode. These features gave a boost of creativity to the course design, allowing for even more verticality and transitions into hovering or underwater areas of the map. One track that stands out is Woohoo Loop, which ditched traditional laps and instead stretched out as one long scenic route, a format later reused in future titles. Gameplay-wise, it sticks closely to the foundation laid by Mario Kart Wii. 16 brand new tracks, 16 retro ones. And Mario Kart 7 is one I didn't spend much time with, but I can say that the courses are gorgeous. Tracks like Music Park, Rosalina's Ice World, and Shy Guy Bazaar are visually striking. And I think to this day, 3DS games hold up very well, especially since you can't really play them legally anywhere else.
We remake old games that people loved as a kid and make them buy it again as adults.
Same goes for the Nintendo DS. I really wonder how Nintendo plans to port games from this system in the future, but maybe that's another topic for another day. But for the first time, you had kart customization. You could now mix and match your kart body, wheels, and glider, each with its own stat trade-offs for speed handling and acceleration. Options. Anyone want to count how many times I've said options in this video? Options. More options. Options. Oh, it was only 4 times. Never mind. As for the roster, it mostly stayed familiar, but introduced a few wild cards like Metal Mario, Wiggler, Lucky 2, and Honey Queen, the one from Super Mario Galaxy. Waluigi, oddly enough, was cut from the game entirely, even though his course, Waluigi Pinball, is still there. I sincerely think they just forgot about him because of the time constraints. The 3DS hardware had boosted wireless connectivity compared to its predecessor, so naturally the game also supported full online play, letting players compete globally or with friends, continuing Nintendo's push to make Mario Kart more than just a couch experience. And I guess that raises the question, where do you really go from here? The quality of life changes, hand gliding, and underwater areas are cool, but the previous Mario Kart games made these big sweeping upgrades, so there wasn't much more ground to cover, to be honest. The game was received with praise, averaging solid 8s, with critics saying that the game played it safe. Still, it would once again be the highest selling title for its system, moving 19 million units around the world, beating out all Pokemon titles, just like Mario Kart DS did. And it's from that Mario Kart 7 framework that the Mario Kart GP Arcade series also got a facelift with. Mario Arcade GP DX, the one most commonly found in arcades now. The title was released in late 2013, with Namco striking a deal with Dave & Buster's to host these machines, which is one of the reasons why it's more prominent in North America. Hang gliders and submersible carts were now available in an arcade setting, and the game once again features a cast of playable characters beyond the usual roster. Pac-Man returned, but Don-chan from Taiko no Tatsujin made his Mario debut. In later updates, Rosalina, Daisy, and King Boo were added, and Namco also refused to forget Waluigi, even if Nintendo did, with the final update rolling out for Japanese version cabinets only in December 2020. But this game is a blast. If you have this in an arcade near you, I highly recommend. It's a great time with friends, and it just feels more action-packed than a typical at-home Mario Kart experience. So at this stage, Mario Kart was just selling like hotcakes, so it's no surprise that the next title in this series would go on to be the 5th best-selling video game of all time. But it wouldn't start out that way.
Mario Kart 8, upside down test. Take 4. Not good.
Mario gets so competitive on the cover of these boxes, my gosh. To understand Mario Kart 8, we first have to look to Nintendo's tragic console, the Wii U. Before I continue, I have one, and I adore this console. It scratches an itch the Switch couldn't. Like, I have a tablet in front of me where I can take notes and look at a map while playing a game like Xenoblade Chronicles or Legend of Zelda. These games were a totally different experience when you didn't have to whip open your map every few seconds. Launched in the holiday of 2012, the Wii U is Nintendo's follow-up to their highly successful Wii. And at the end of the Wii's life cycle, the game started to drop off a bit. The casual market was tired of their Just Dance / Netflix machine, and hardcore gamers took to more powerful consoles like the PlayStation 3 or Xbox 360 for better performance. So Nintendo aimed to get the core players back with a console more suited to that dedicated player base. But the marketing behind this was famously poor, with people initially thinking that this was a tablet peripheral to the Wii. But there were other problems too. Another weak lineup of launch titles and limited support from third-party developers. It was difficult to justify the $299 price point, especially when Americans were still feeling some post-recession squeeze. So, despite all the cool features this thing had, it was one of the worst-selling Nintendo consoles of all time, only selling 13 million units. With that bit of history out of the way, it's no surprise Nintendo wanted a Mario Kart title on this system. Hideki Kono would start production on the game in late 2011, prior to the system's launch, with the game revealed to the world during E3 2013's Nintendo Direct. We've already taken to the air and the seas. The series already has a well-established online ecosystem. We've had up to 24 characters, so in this title, it was time to turn things upside down. Literally. Initially, Kono had the idea to have drivers be able to drill into the ground, but anti-gravity sounded much more exciting. It's even referenced in the design of the number 8, resembling a Mobius strip, which depicts the tracks overlapping itself with the introduction of anti-grav. That means Mario and friends now have these specialized karts that can stick to walls and go upside down on track, with these crazy wheels that transform mid-race. When in anti-gravity mode, the drivers can collide with special bumpers along the track that give a speed boost, or when you bump into another racer, you get the same effect. Even with these new mechanics, this is still very much Mario Kart, and in my opinion, one of the smoothest driving experiences in the series. At launch, the game included 16 immediately selectable characters. Your Mario Brothers, the princesses, DK, Wario, Waluigi was remembered this time, and baby versions of a lot of these characters. But as you play through the game, you unlock 14 additional ones, like Rosalina and Toadette. But new to the Mario Kart series was baby Rosalina, making her debut as a character in the entire Mario franchise. And joining us for the first time ever, surprisingly, were all of the Koopalings, Bowser's not children. And then there was Pink Gold Peach? I guess if you have a Metal Mario, you can have a Pink Gold Peach, right? The Miis make a return, and the cool thing about them this time is that their stats are based on the Mii's height and weight the player picked when creating them. There are 37 total vehicles in Mario Kart 8 with a brand new vehicle class introduced, the ATV. Any Teddy Buggy fans out there? And like Mario Kart 7 before it, you can once again mix and match vehicle parts to optimize your stats with the kart customization feature. To go along with this was a new difficulty, 200 cc's, introduced in a later update. Ready to fly at high speeds and crash into all the walls? This is the difficulty for you. 4 new items made the cut as well, like the boomerang flower that is absolutely lethal if used right, the piranha plant, which goes to town on any racers in the vicinity of the driver and gives a speed boost, the Crazy 8, which essentially is this game's logo, and it's called Crazy for a reason because it gives you 8 items all at once, and last but not least, the Super Horn. Finally, players can now defend themselves against that spiny shell if they use this as it approaches. Returning are the usual modes like Grand Prix, Time Trials, Versus, Battle, and Online, with the game launching once again with 16 brand new courses and 16 classic ones. And I don't think there's a single dull moment in these tracks because they feature branching paths and areas to hover, ramps and bumps to trick off of, and underwater sections, all while integrating this new anti-gravity mechanic. One of my favorite tracks is Mount Wario, a race down the top of a snowy mountain all the way to the base as you fight it out with other players, with the race taking place all in one lap. The Electrodrome is another crazy course. The race and a party all at once. I'm not kidding, there are Koopas having a blast on this map. But among all the lights and disco-themed roads, you can pick one of 2 distinct paths, which gives off this dueling roller coaster type of vibe. It's a fun one. And of course, a brand new Rainbow Road, which is now a blend of the traditional Rainbow Road design with this massive satellite orbiting the planet. I will say, even though there isn't distinct lore in the Mario Kart titles, I think I'm onto something here. What started as a little fun between the Mario cast by a special request from Lakitu turned into this massive multi-billion coin franchise in the Mushroom Kingdom. As the games progress, all these characters start shilling their companies. There are sponsors in the background of the maps, like Mario Motors, Rainbow Exploration Agency, Rexa for short, Bowser Oil, Peach and Daisy have opened a patisserie together, and the latest introduction to Mario Kart 8, Mario Kart TV. Yes, the Mario Kart races are now televised to the Mushroom Kingdom, and the implication seems to be that whoever owns Mario Kart TV, which I highly theorize to be Lakitu, partnered with Rexa to create this massive space station around Rainbow Road.
Isn't that cute? But it's wrong!
There is lore to be extracted from Mario Kart, you just have to look carefully. But Mario Kart TV wasn't just a sponsor in-game, it was a whole new mode introduced in Mario Kart 8, an online feature where players could share highlights of their races for public viewing. The game would catalog the last 12 races or battle replays, and the player could view and edit the footage, add time-based effects like slow down, rewind, etc., and share them on YouTube or Miiverse, the lost Wii U online community that I miss dearly. Highlights for the races are awesome, by the way, because seeing the moment that shell is being thrown and who it hits in slow motion can be very entertaining in a group setting. It was these same highlights that led to the Luigi Death Stare meme in the first place. But Mario Kart 8 had more in store for fans. Nintendo developed a substantial amount of DLC for the game, with 3 downloadable content packs, with Dry Bowser returning and Tanuki Mario and Cat Peach making their debut. But while these inclusions aren't surprising, we'd step outside the Mario series and into the world of Hyrule, with Link being introduced for the first time. One of the DLCs was the Legend of Zelda Mario Kart 8 collaboration, featuring new maps like the Excite Bike Arena, directly inspired by Excite Bike for the NES, and Mute City, pulled from the game that helped kick off this series in the first place, F-Zero, a perfect setting for this new anti-gravity style of gameplay. The Triforce Cup brought retro tracks back like the original Rainbow Road from Super Mario Kart, but also gave us Hyrule Circuit, another one of my favorite tracks in this game. Finally, we can race through the fields, town, and castle of Hyrule, collecting rupees instead of coins along the way. I love this so much. The second pack was an Animal Crossing collaboration, including male and female versions of the villager alongside Isabelle. And yes, 8 new additional courses bringing back classics like Baby Park to reintroduce that free-for-all, and Cheese Land! There's an Animal Crossing themed course as well, but the track changes each time you play it, corresponding to the 4 seasons. So whenever you load up this cup, you don't really know which one you're gonna get. This pack also brought the second F-Zero themed map, Big Blue. I gotta love the appreciation for the franchise here. We just need Captain Falcon to join the squad in Mario Kart World at some point, fingers crossed. Nintendo brought the collaborations for Mario Kart 8 out into the real world as well, striking a partnership with Mercedes-Benz, which was a free downloadable pack with kart bodies and parts based on Mercedes vehicles, including the GLA and 300 SL Roadster. Pennzoil also joined hands with Nintendo to promote the game at South by Southwest in 2014, hosting a kart racing event with modified karts. So as you can see, even if they didn't expand on the Mario Kart mechanics much, this was a massive game, packed with a lot of new content. It was highly praised by critics and audiences alike, selling a whopping, 8.4 million copies? But Mario Kart Wii sold 37 million. Even Mario Kart 7 hit 16 million, what gives? Well, this was the result of poor Wii U sales. Mario Kart 8 was hands down the highest selling Wii U game, with over half of the owners having a copy of the title. In fact, in the UK, when this game launched, Wii U console sales rose by 662%. Unfortunately, there were only so many consoles this game could sell, and Nintendo was pressured by the fans to just call the Wii U a loss and move on, which they did.
Oh, Joy-Con boys! Joy-Con boys! Oh, shit!
And in 2017, the Nintendo Switch was launched, Satoru Iwata's final legacy, which would become the 3rd best-selling video game console of all time with 152 million sales as of this video. So with their audience back, Nintendo wasn't gonna let Mario Kart 8 go to waste, with it queued up to be re-released for the Switch a month after the launch of the console in April 2017, and it would be rebranded as Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. New content would be featured right out of the gate, with all the previous downloadable content included in the game as well. This also meant new characters like the Inklings from Splatoon, King Boo, Drybones, and Bowser Jr., more accessibility options for players like smart steering and auto acceleration, which I have to turn off for every new player, by the way. And there was even a new steering wheel shelf for the Joy-Cons if you missed that old Wii waggle. Deluxe was a full tune-up. Every DLC track and character is unlocked from minute 1, load times are faster, CPUs back off slightly when they're on your bumper, you can charge a new purple Ultra Mini Turbo, and for the first time since Double Dash, double item boxes let you stash 2 items at once. With these tweaks and more, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe felt like the series' definitive director's cut. I know I've also neglected to mention battle mode for the last few games. My bad, balloon poppers. So let's finally give it the spotlight. In Deluxe, Nintendo rebuilt the whole system for battles, creating original arenas instead of carving them out of racetracks. We get 8 arenas, and that fresh turf comes with 5 distinct ways to settle grudges. Classic balloon battle is still the default, of course, but now it sits alongside the bomb-spamming craziness of Ba-Bomb Blast. Shine Thief returns, where you once again play Keep Away with a single shine sprite. Coin Runners, which turns the map into a mad dash for loose change while you bump rivals to steal their stash. And the brand new mode, Renegade Roundup, a cops and robbers inspired showdown where one team wields piranha plants and the other scrambles to hit jailbreak buttons. Okay, what else? Oh yeah, remember when Donkey Kong was dabbing on the competition? So I'm sure you're not surprised, but Mario Kart 8 Deluxe became the highest selling game on the console, breaking new records with that 68 million sales number. This is not including the 8 million it managed to sell on the Wii U. And Mario Kart 8 started to feel more like a platform rather than just one game. In 2018, there was an update that made 8 Deluxe compatible with Nintendo Labo, that cardboard kit that Nintendo sold to kids to recreate that SpongeBob episode with.
Oh, you two, shut up!
I'm underselling it here, but you could use Labo Kit to create a full driver's wheel and pedal, as well as the Toy-Con motorbike, complete with its own throttle, handlebars, and gyroscope, making it fully playable in-game. Okay, there's still a lot more to say about Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, but I need a break. This is a narrative choice, so trust the process. So we have to go back to arcades in Japan back in July 2017. Released the same year as Mario Kart 8 Deluxe was Mario Kart Arcade GP VR, a virtual reality experience developed by Bandai Namco where you drive in first person, taking advantage of a VR headset on your head. Like previous GP games, the player has the full racing setup and can race alongside other players, with the characters being Mario, Luigi, Peach, and Yoshi. But this time you use hand movements to throw items using a wrist attachment. In comparison to the other arcade titles, this one's a bit of a limited experience and takes place in a one-lap course split up into different sections, which makes sense since it's fully in VR. This is the only Mario Kart arcade experience I haven't gotten to try myself, and that's not a surprise, because they only seem to have this available at one location in the United States, which was Washington, DC, and that one hasn't been available since 2019. But let me know in the comments if you guys know other locations where they may be. But if they are totally extinct, the closest experience to this now is the ride at Super Nintendo World at Universal Studios, Mario Kart Bowser's Challenge. This ride initially opened in March 2021 when Super Nintendo World launched at Universal Studios Japan. This is one of the main attractions for Super Nintendo World, taking place within a replica of Bowser's castle, and I still find the whole interior just being visually impressive. The first time I went on this, I had the pleasure of checking it out during a trip to Japan, and the ride itself sticks pretty close to the theme of later Mario Kart games, with Bowser's Challenge just seeming like another day in the life for the Mario crew. Each cart fits 4 people, and it's set on a track as it slowly tugs along through the ride. So instead of a high thrills dark ride experience, you're putting AR lenses onto a visor, which is where most of the excitement will happen. As the car moves along the track, Team Mario, Luigi, Peach, Daisy, Toad, and Yoshi, go up against Team Bowser, him and the Koopalings, as they compete for the Universal Cup. The ride features sections of the course from various games throughout the series, ending with Rainbow Road. And you'll use your head to aim and push a button on the steering wheel to fire shells to hit as many obstacles and members of Team Bowser as you can. Hit any of Mario's group and you get points deducted. And as you reach the end of the ride, you'll see how well you did against others in your car and people who've been on the ride that day. I think the ride is a cool experience just for the aesthetic. It's not very often I can be in a piece of an amusement park strictly dedicated to video games, so I'll take what I can get. And the ride spits you out into a Mario Motors gift shop where you can line Mario's pockets with more money. Either way, I think the ride was worth mentioning and a testament to the impact of the Mario Kart series, seeing as Nintendo built an entire Super Nintendo World park and landed on a Mario Kart ride as their flagship feature. Personally, I would have liked a Super Mario Galaxy themed roller coaster, flying through the best galaxies in the game, and maybe a visit from Rosalina before the universe resets as we fly through a white void and back into the Mushroom Kingdom, while all the Toads clap for us as the ride comes to a stop.
So you made it back in one piece. We couldn't have done it without you guys.
Universal, make that one happen. And Nintendo didn't stop with amusement park rides and VR experiences though. They'd make a huge move for the company by jumping into the mobile market, releasing games like Super Mario Run, Fire Emblem Heroes, Animal Crossing Pocket Camp, and Mario Kart Tour. Finally, all you needed to race your friends was a smartphone. Mario Kart Tour launched for iOS and Android in September of 2019, reusing assets from Mario Kart 7 and 8. And this wasn't your typical Mario Kart, it's a gacha game in disguise. First off, a lot of the controls are automated, so you'll be mainly swiping across the screen to point in the direction you want your character to drive. If you do this correctly around corners, the driver will drift and give you mini turbos in typical Mario Kart fashion. And while picking up items, you'll swipe up or down to throw the item forward or backwards respectively. For supported mobile devices, you can also use the gyroscope to steer as well. Get first place in the race and you'll be rewarded with addictive things to make you play more, like Grand Stars, coins, and experience points for your driver and cart. First, the business model. Tour is built on rubies, currency that you'll pay actual money for. And in the early days, you sunk those rubies into these green pipes, with each pulling a loot box spin for a random driver, cart, or glider for instance. The drop rates were so controversial that Nintendo never even released the game in Belgium, due to the country's strict anti-loot box laws, loot boxes being equivalent to gambling over there. Which is mostly true, but I won't bog down this video with my opinions about this as you're attempting to roll your next Wuthering Waves waifu.
What's that look on your face? Surprised to see me?
I see you. In late 2022, Nintendo swapped the pipes for a friendlier looking Spotlight shop, where you can pay one price for guaranteed rewards. Of course, if you want something more trustworthy, you can get this Gold Pass subscription, $4.99 a month to unlock 200cc option, extra tour gifts, and a drip feed of premium loot. But don't get me wrong, if you use Mario Kart Tour for your daily commute, you can absolutely play for free. Not for the part that keeps people hooked. Every 2 weeks, the game launches a new tour, with each tour being a bundle of cups, leaderboard challenges, and a roadmap of Grand Star rewards for clearing races. Nintendo kept that cycle going for 4 straight years, and the content pileup is wild. There are over 200 unique drivers within the game, from Poochie and Kamek to a ton of holiday-themed Marios. The game even revived Donkey Kong Jr. from the dead, He's still alive, guys! There are 103 courses, not including remix versions of them according to the Mario Wiki. Many of them taking place in real-life cities around the world like New York, Tokyo, Paris, and London. Some fans even referred to it as Mario Kart 9, given how much content it piled on, until Nintendo clarified that it wasn't an official numbered game, but more on that shortly. The catalog of updates got so huge, they even included battle mode in a later update. Mario Kart Tour is so massive it can get its own hour-long video, but if tapping a phone screen still feels a little too virtual, Nintendo's next experiment would put a physical kart in your living room.
Accelerate onto a brand new course. Your own home.
So if GPVR was VR Mario Kart and Bowser's Challenge is AR Mario Kart, Nintendo would also tackle mixed reality with Mario Kart Live Home Circuit for the Nintendo Switch, released in October of 2020. As part of Mario's 35th anniversary, we'd get Mario Kart as an RC car, which was loaded up with cameras while the player used their Switch to control the car. I remember when this trailer launched. I was living in a studio apartment where my kitchen was next to my bedroom. You guys probably remember when I was recording with my bed behind me. So from the moment I laid eyes on that trailer, I immediately knew this game wasn't for me. My apartment would have been the smallest Mario Kart course in history, but I think it was marketed toward kids anyway. Players were meant to build racing playsets around the house and use the feed coming from the kart's camera to see a virtual track around their house as they drove around. Up to 4 players can play at once, with Bowser Jr. and the Koopalings stepping in as the main antagonists of the game in Grand Prix mode. To create a track, he would place these 4 physical gates around the room, and you're on your way, with Mario reminding you of the absolute basin of filth that you live in. So as you race in Grand Prix mode, Bowser Jr. and the Koopalings appear on the track on your screen, and it operates like a typical Mario Kart game from there. It's a cool idea, but nobody could possibly have bought this, right? 1.7 million copies sold. I honestly went to see if I could still purchase this, and it's either sold out or they don't produce these anymore. So you know what that means. If you have a sealed one, sell it back for $5 grand 10 years from now. Okay, enough detours. We're now in the year 2022. People are clamoring for Mario Kart 9. We've been eating off of Mario Kart 8 for 8 years. It was a Wii U port, for goodness sakes. Where was the Mario Kart developed for Nintendo Switch? Well, Nintendo would insist that we'd be fed some more, with Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course. To be fair, it was a massive expansion to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. 12 additional cups drip-fed in waves starting from March 2022, with the 6th and final wave launching in November 2023. A lot of the tracks are pulled straight from Mario Kart Tour, which makes sense. Nintendo wasn't about to let all of that mobile content go to waste. They also threw in some fan-favorite classics like Coconut Mall and Maple Treeway from Mario Kart Wii, Rosalina's Ice World from Mario Kart 7, and even this brand new fever dream called Squeaky Clean Sprint, a race set entirely inside someone's bathroom. Whose bathtub is this? Is it our bathroom from Mario Kart Live? Does that confirm we canonically exist in the Mario universe? Existential plumbing questions aside, Squeaky Clean Sprint wasn't the only new track. Booster Course had 2 other brand new courses, Sky High Sundae and Yoshi's Island. Sky High Sundae looks like a map straight out of Fall Guys, but on its own it's a fun track that's different from the typical Mario landscape. The entire course being an anti-gravity course, but the standout course is definitely Yoshi's Island. It's a love letter to the original game, with the race weaving through different worlds from Yoshi's Island. Even the coins are replaced with Yoshi coins, and there's a clever shortcut mechanic where gliding through a winged cloud can trigger a bridge to the finish line. As Nintendo continued to support Mario Kart Tour, all of the courses that debuted in Booster Course also became available for Mario Kart Tour as well. Each wave also brought returning racers Birdo, Petey Piranha, Wiggler, Kamek, who was supposed to be in the original Mario Kart 8 before getting scrapped. Again, that's twice he's been cut. Then came Diddy Kong and Funky Kong, 2 fan favorites from the Wii days, back like surprise WWE entrants. The final wave added Pauline and Peachette, Bowsette's legally safe stand-in. And while it might feel like they debuted here, they actually appeared first in Mario Kart Tour. So while I'm on the topic, the roster churn in these games is wild. Like, some characters vanish for years and then show up again like nothing happened. Either way, Booster Course was an interesting way to close out Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, but it was confirmation that Nintendo wouldn't bother with a Mario Kart 9 anytime soon. But we would learn recently that they used Booster Course to buy some time for the next and most recent addition to the series, Mario Kart World. Let's bring this video home.
Let's go!
Disclaimer. As I'm making this video, Mario Kart World isn't officially out yet, but many of you are probably cracking it open today for the first time, so hello from the past. There's enough gameplay and interviews to actually discuss what went into this game, so I won't spoil all the tracks or characters, but I'll just roughly go over what Nintendo has released to us so far. Mario Kart World was unceremoniously announced to the world during the Nintendo Switch 2 first look trailer back in January 2025. No name, we just knew it as Mario Kart 9, or 10, because that was a huge debate on Reddit between fans for some reason. It was briefly shown on the screen to showcase the visuals of the Switch 2 itself, but all the characters were depicted in a newer, more colorful, and expressive art style, similar to Super Mario Bros. Wonder. And then it launched massive discourse over why Donkey Kong was redesigned, even though you can barely see him in this trailer. But I'll save Bonanza and that fiasco for another video. I totally called this, by the way.
Since he has a redesign, I feel like they're cooking up something with Donkey Kong. Unless I'm totally tripping about that redesign in Mario Kart, and that's just Donkey Kong Jr. grown up or something like that.
I'm excited to sink my teeth into that one though. Their follow-up Nintendo Direct for the Switch 2 in April 2025 gave us a full trailer showcasing the game's selling point. This time, Mario and friends have a fully open world to race on and explore. Going back to my early theory, Mario and friends weren't satisfied with their Mario Kart franchise sticking to the Mushroom Kingdom, so it was time to build tracks all over the world and transform the surrounding lands into a capitalist society. Even Yoshi opened up his own roadside burger joint.
Bro, what are you talking about, man?
So as you join them on their capitalist takeover, the game is loaded with brand new features. Apparently there was much more ground they could cover in a Mario Kart game. Familiar features like gliding return, but anti-gravity and underwater racing seem to have been removed, replaced with carts transforming into boats for above water racing, and wall riding instead. However, the drivers can also grind on rails with their vehicles. And with this new open world, cups have now become one continuous set of races, with players starting on one course and then having to race in an intermediate area to get to the next course for non-stop action. So instead of teleporting from course to course, you drive everywhere, which breathes life into the world in a much more refreshing way. For example, Mario Bros. Circuit was revealed in the trailer taking place in a desert, but once that race is over, players will race along the route to the next course, Crown City. It's not yet clear how customizable this experience is yet, but this feels like a fun inclusion to me. Additionally, there is now a free roam mode, which means you can drive virtually anywhere on the map and not have to worry about races. It's a relaxing scenic mode that Nintendo recently revealed will also have missions, so there will be things to do as you explore as well. You can even join friends and just hang out and take pictures, which complements the Switch 2's new C button, where you can chat and screen share with friends. Knockout Tour is also a new mode being introduced, which is a race over consecutive tracks across the world. Along the way are checkpoints players will have to clear, but as you go along, the bottom 4 players will be eliminated. Survival of the fastest, or as I like to call it, taking out the trash.
That's how you cut the fat. You ever play with people who have no idea what they're doing? Them kids.
I'm kidding. Mostly. The races support a total of 24 drivers, which is the most drivers in one race in series history. So while this game is no surprise as a launch title, the features are a welcome change to the formula. Hideki Kono stepped aside as producer for this one, with Kosuke Yabuki, director of Mario Kart 8, filling in as the role of producer instead. This time bringing together young blood who also worked on Mario Kart 8, like Kenta Sato, Masaki Ishikawa, and Shintaro Jikumaru to direct. In an Ask the Developer interview, they revealed that Mario Kart World was being planned as far back as 2017. Yabuki has said, quote, "We were thinking about what to do for the next Mario Kart game, even during the development of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and we began prototyping in March 2017. It was at the end of that year when we officially started working on it as a project. I felt that in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, we were able to perfect the formula that we'd been following in the series up to that point, where players race on individual courses. That's why this time, we wanted the gameplay to involve players driving around a large world, and we began creating a world map like this. So while this game is officially Mario Kart 9, they felt the number was doing the game a disservice, seeing as it was such a different approach to the series itself. So Mario Kart World was selected as a title way back, even in the concept art phase. As I mentioned before about Mario Kart DS onward, the theme of the games did feel a lot more sanitized, like it shifted away from that vibe of Mario and friends going out for a friendly competition. And Mario Kart 8's art direction was meant to focus on a futuristic and sophisticated design. But it seems in this interview, Ishikawa, who was in charge of the art direction, wanted to recapture the feeling of Super Mario Kart, and they focused on the phrase playfulness to convey the feeling of adventure while going back to the roots of the series. This led to a more rounded character design to give them that playful expression and richer movements. So seeing as the game was being developed back in 2017, the team ran into several technical hurdles developing it for the Nintendo Switch.
Oh my piece.
Early prototypes only supported 12 racers, but the open world felt too empty, so they attempted to scale up but had to fight with the technical limitations of the Switch. They even considered toning down visuals, lowering resolution, or even dropping the frame rate, but that led them to continue kicking the can down the road, not wanting to sacrifice their complete vision. Enter Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course, which gave them the option to release additional courses to tide Mario Kart fans over as they figured out what to do with Mario Kart World. And that's when the conversation of pivoting to the upcoming Nintendo Switch 2 happened for the team, which gave them some hope. And while the team was aware of the specs for the new system, they didn't have working development kits yet, and had to continue development on the Switch while finding the right balance to plan for that next console. But with all this new technical power, the team could now support additional drivers, higher frame rates, more detailed terrain, additional music, and even changes to the weather and the time of day during races and exploration. But let's talk about the music for a second. In charge of this was Atsuko Asahi, who's best known for her contributions to Animal Crossing New Leaf, ARMS, and Mario Kart 8. Now that you spend so much more time driving across this world, the team needed additional tracks and packed in over 200 music tracks from previous Mario Kart titles and remixes from overall Mario titles, all orchestrated live. According to them, with this jukebox feature, you can be racing towards Bowser's castle while blasting Bowser's Road from Super Mario 64, or put on arranged chill tracks that might fit your playstyle a little bit better, which is exciting for me as there's so many Mario tracks out there that I feel I've missed out on. But I must say, as I was reading through this interview, I was amazed by some of the concept artwork, as it just oozes with a style I've never seen before in a Mario Kart game. It truly feels like the Mario cast is just hanging out in this low-stakes game, as if it's a huge road trip. Like this picture of Mario that looks straight out of a Goofy movie. There's a shot of the princesses and Pauline sharing a meal together as well, which is indeed a feature in the final product. So now you can support Yoshi's new fast food franchise and stop for a bite to eat, which will somehow give your player a different outfit to wear. A transformation inspired by Mario's consumption of mushrooms in the games. As I said before, I won't mention every single character in the game, but many familiar veterans of the Mario Kart series appear. But this time they went with some interesting picks, the most memeable one so far being an entire cow. That idea dated back to this sketch, when they were working on an early version of a course set on a ranch. The idea was so wacky that they went on to put in a prototype of a cow that could race, which led to the inclusion of other unorthodox characters like Cheep Cheep and Pokey, triggered by a special item that I'll let you all discover for yourselves. So with all that said, I'm probably playing Mario Kart World right now as we speak. Or maybe not, seeing that they're canceling pre-orders out here. But everything I've read so far points to this title being a welcomed addition to the series. From playing split screen on the Super Nintendo while sleeping over your cousin's house, to an open world road trip across the globe, Mario Kart has come a long way. And I hope there are cousins and siblings tearing each other apart over blue shells and stolen wins in Mario Kart World as well. But generationally, as we see Mario Kart hit sales record after sales record, it has always been about one thing, bringing people together for the ride. So wherever you may be playing from today, I truly hope you enjoy the road ahead.